watching Chimicomics. Welcome back to Novel Nook, and this time we're going to be covering Ghosts Chapter 2,
Book 2,
Ghostmaker.
So this is Riley. I'm Wyatt.
Yes, for our new watchers.
Yep.
Ghostmaker is the second book of the Gaunt's Ghosts storyline. So this one is more like a character development type book. Not a lot really happens as far as a story. It's more just like getting to know the characters, and there is an overall story.
It's honestly like a Gaunt's Ghosts anthology, just because each chapter really focuses on a single character until the very end, where they add some overarching plot to continue things. And I thought that was pretty cool, at the plot they did at the end. But yeah, what would you rate this book, Riley?
So character development 10. Overall story, I would say more like a 7. So
yeah.
I'm like 8, I guess.
I'll give it a
overall.
9. Mine's a 9 overall.
I really liked being able to get like more insight into the characters.
Because there are a lot of them in Gaunt's Ghosts.
Yes, there are, and there's a lot to keep up with. And you get some of that in the first book. I think he did a very good job in the first book, but he got to flesh them out a little bit more in this
Before
one.
moving on to the magnum opus of Necropolis.
Oh, that's some high praise.
It's really good.
I'm excited for that. But anyway, the overall story is like they're on Monthax.
Monthax. It's a hell world, which in 40k means very, very hostile jungle.
So it's Vietnam.
Pretty much.
Vietnam planet.
And the trees are speaking chaos.
They're there to fight chaos, and of course the chaos people, demons, are going after some kind of artifact.
Yep.
As they always do in these books. So you'll get glimpses of just them at the camp.
Yeah, they're waiting for the battle to actually hit off, because they're entrenched in a swamp. It's pretty much a shit show that's muddy and water everywhere. Gaunt is a little better off because it's usually from his point of view. And he'll be going and talking to a character, and then they'll have a chapter about that character. So that's how these intros work. Like he comes across Trooper Catherine doing bayonet practice, and he gives him a tip on how to slide it out of another person so it doesn't get stuck. Yeah. So they just describe it as muddy. They're trying to entrench in mud, and it don't work too well, but they make it work.
Yeah. So it starts off. Is this one about Gaunt? I remember they had Sim in this one.
Yeah, this is so the start one is what you would expect to be the beginning of book 1, because it actually shows the destruction of Tanith. We never saw that in book 1. We're just told about it, that Gaunt basically abandoned Tanith, and some of the regiment hates him for it. This, we see Gaunt land onto Tanith, meet with the officials and whatnot, and we see Ron, Corbeck, Larkin, Fager, and a couple other ghosts, and none of them are officers at this point. They're all just regular troopers just hanging out on the founding fields, which is where all the guardsmen hang out while they load up onto their transports and go off to fight for the Imperium. Before they can get fully loaded, however, chaos attacks, and it's a big deal because this was just after the major crusade victory at Balhot, and Slado, the former war master, was wanting to cover the flanks so the enemy couldn't retreat from Balhot and destroy loyal worlds like Tanith. Makarov said, screw that, he's the new war master, he wants to take the initiative and seize more ground, so he just goes forward, and the enemy is able to get past the pickets and attack Tanith directly. There's far too many of them. That Tanith just has its militia, and there's 3 transports and a frigate. That's all they have as far as ships to fight. So Gaunt, as he decided that Tanith could not be saved, these men in the Imperial Guard are not Tanith anymore. They're Imperial Guardsmen. Their services to the Emperor. They will be much better suited to get out there into the Crusades. So everyone who can get on the transports, we're going. And that's what they do. So before he leaves, though, Gaunt is about to get on a transport, and he gets pinned down by these Chaos troops. And then Bryn Milo, who this boy who was assigned to take care of Gaunt, basically be his attendant while he was on Tanith, and play pipes, would piss Gaunt off once. He sees Gaunt's in a predicament, and he gets on an auto gun that's mounted on a balcony and starts blowing people away. And he's like, "Get on the transport, go!" Like he's sacrificing himself. But Gaunt's like, "No," and opens the door before it shuts, and like gets him on the transport, takes him with him, and they leave. And Gaunt
and Bryn is like the one that got him on there too, because like Bryn was already on the transport, and he's like, "Hey, you have to let the commissar on," and he gets him to open the transport door back up, and that's how Gaunt gets on. And then like you said, he went back out there to kind of get the fire off of Gaunt, and Gaunt took him with him. But that's nice that they explain like how Bryn Milo's there, and why Gaunt feels like he owes something to him.
Which wasn't covered really in the first book. None of this really was. They didn't show any of this. But
he might not have known where he exactly wanted to go with all this yet.
Yeah. So they are in space now. Everyone's on the transports. They're heading to the Crusade front, and the ghosts who made it on the transports are pissed because they wanted to fight and die for their world. So they elect to send Milo because they think that it'll make the Commissar soft to see him. And they also elect Korbeck and Ron to go as well. And Gaunt, as a Commissar, they're basically mutinying right now when they do this. And he is fully within his rights as a Commissar to execute their asses. And that's kind of what they expect. But that's not what he does. Instead, he says, "You two are trusted by the men. Korbeck, you're my colonel. Ron, you're my major." So he promotes them to officer status because none of the officers who were originally going to be in this regiment made it off the planet. So now they have been raised to the ranks, and this is kind of the first bit of meeting between the characters that we will talk about in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And the second chapter is also about Gaunt, really. It's from his point of view. It's called A Blooding, and this is the Ghost's first real combat scenario. They're on Volpone, and they enter with some basilisk tanks that are trugging along, and they get ambushed by Chaos Space Marines, and they're like, "Oh my god, we're going to die." But then the Tanith decide to ambush the ambush, and they completely obliterate the massive hulking Astartes. And basically they hop on board the Basilisk and get a ride to where they need to go, and they start bonding with these crews, joking around. This is their first bit of combat, and they are going to attack a city, and they're going to blast open a way for the Volpone, Royal Volpone infantry. They're heavy infantry, got armor. They are from a world that's rich, so they kind of have better equipment, better lineage. They're kind of like the Jantine patricians, but not totally assholes, I should say, from the first book.
Yeah.
So
I love how scary they make the Chaos Marines in this one too.
Oh yeah.
They make it seem like they're fighting the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's how Astartes are. They're superhuman. I would not be wrong to say Astartes against a lot of people, characters from comics, would not be an unfair matchup.
Yeah.
Like Batman, I'm sorry, but you're getting a chainsword ripped through you.
I don't know. He fought Bane.
I
mean, Bane's pretty fast.
And Astartes are faster. They would rip Bane in half. So the ghosts attack the city, and they're going to attack through this waterway. And they send like a token force to go through the sewer system as well. Gaunt's expecting to breach through the main waterway, and they get there. They're almost about to do it, but then the Chaos forces decide to flood it. So they start releasing water down it. The ghosts basically can't do anything now. But Sergeant Cluggan has led his troops up the sewer system, and has blown a hole through the wall, so blew through the fortifications of the city, and that's the signal for the Volpone to march on in and take it. So the ghosts completely open up the city for them, and now it's time for them to retreat. Unfortunately, we enter with General Noches Sturm, who is he's just basically the next version of Dravir from the last book.
Another brass that has it out for gone.
So yeah, he basically sees the Tanith as just a bunch of savages and they're dishonorable, and he's going to do Makarov a favor and kill them. So he goes to the Basilisk tanks, their commander Oritz, and commands him to bombard the line of retreat from the city that the Tanith are currently using. And Oritz is like, but sir, the Tanith are there, and he's like, I don't pay you to ask questions, Oritz. I don't pay you at all. For the Emperor, you will fire your guns. And he does. So they are bombarding the ghosts as they retreat, and they lose 300 of them. They are killed by their own friendly fire. Gaunt walks up to Oritz after this, and Oritz is like, Kabazar, and before he can even finish, Gaunt slugs him. But then afterwards, it's explained everything that happened. So Gaunt is called forth to Sturm because he struck another officer. And Sturm is like, this is a shooting charge. I know that friendly fire is always something that's a possibility in the confusing haze of warfare, basically being an aristocratic douche. And Oritz, the best part is Sturm's in like this mansion that was left behind, and it's beautiful. There's like fountains and stuff, very, very noble. And Oritz drives a basilisk through the main gate, and there's the Volpone who are training and shit, and he sends them scattering, and he points the gun directly at Sturm's office, and he comes in and makes it known that Gaunt didn't punch me. I got hit by a gun as it was firing, walking past. I wasn't paying attention, so no charges, nothing like that. Yep. And Gaunt basically says to Sturm, but I do know that I can just kill anyone and blame it on the fog of war. And basically points at that gun pointing directly at him. So, yeah, this causes the Volpone and the Tanith to have a pretty understandable rivalry.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Cluggan, the guy who actually did lead and open up the city, he died during the bombardment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very sad.
It is.
And that rivalry will definitely come up later in the book. It'll be a big point.
So, yeah, next part. Then this, I'm going to talk about this. So they're back on Monthax, and Gaunt talks to McCole, and he's giving McCole is his chief scout pretty much. He has supernatural stealth abilities, even amongst all the other ghosts who are really good.
They're all great scouts, but he's way better than them.
He is like Batman levels of disappearing out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure there's parts in future books where other officers are like talking to this scout who's attached to him, and they like turn away for a second, and they look back and he's gone. They're like, how the bloody hell did he do that? But yeah, so McCall is giving his scout reports, and he says that he saw a ruin in the jungle, stone ruins, not chaos or anything like that. And I just kind of found it, and I haven't been able to find it again. I'm going to try and find it again for you just to check it out. And Gaunt's like, yeah, it's a pretty good idea. So the next chapter, Sound and Fury, is about McCall. Yep. So they're on a planet. This
one's wild.
Yeah. They're on a planet called Ramillies 268-43. And basically they are on anti-insurgency ops. So there's still chaos forces left in the wilderness, and they need to kill them. Actually, hold on. Did I miss something? No, I didn't. Making sure.
Good.
Yeah, we're good. So, McCall is scouting. They've done these sweeps for weeks now, and Corbeck is still like, I'm still seeing signs that there's people out here. So, I think we need to continue, even though as the other scouts are kind of getting lazy because they're not finding the things McCall is, because McCall's kind of a god at this.
One guy is just making the slightest amount of noise.
Yeah,
and
basically
comes up and like puts a knife to his throat.
Yeah, and the dude's like, I could have killed you. I mean, you could have killed me. And he's like, yeah, I could have with all that noise you were making. And he gets sad and depressed because he's like, I really wanted to impress my senpai here.
Well, like, they talk about it, like,
Yeah.
he's thinking to himself, like, I pride myself on being a good scout. Like,
Yeah.
people recognize that at the founding and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, this guy just makes me look like an amateur.
Yeah. Dude,
It's very discouraging.
There's another in the future book, an Eldar freaking assassin. These are like some known as the best stealthers in 40k, and one of them's trying to kill McCole, and McCole makes it look like a bitch. It's awesome. McCole has just the warp is looking out for McCole, I think. But anyway,
Yeah.
so he finds this guy, like you said, and he's making him look like an amateur, and they keep moving in, and they end up in this, like, they were in tall grass, and now they're around these cactuses, and these cactuses are crazy. You make any sound around them, and they shoot off these barbs like a machine gun, and the barbs have already killed another scout, and they're poisoned. But that's not the only thing. They find a Chaos Dreadnought still alive, and Dreadnoughts are basically Space Marine battle suits. And when a Space Marine is too wounded, they cut him up and put him into this suit and splice him to it. He can't get out of it. He's got heavy weapons, and he's hard to kill. This one has been wounded in the original battle for this planet. Its eyes are destroyed, so it can't see. It's hunting on merely sound.
Mm-hmm.
So McCole decides to fight it, and he does this.
I mean, he didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
this thing kind of cornered him.
yeah, and both of the ghosts that he found, the one that was wounded by the barbs originally, and the one that was with him ended up getting hit by the barbs and making too much noise because of the poison. He screams and the dreadnought kills him. So both of his friends are dead, and McCole takes his last gun and overloads the power cell. And first thing though, he throws a grenade and lets the barbs all dissipate from one area, and he goes to hide in that area where the barbs can't fuck with him. And he calls out to the dreadnought to make it come to him, and he throws his last gun, which he's overcharged, so it like does an armor-piercing explosion, like melts away the armor of concealing the operator, so it reveals the flesh. And then he moves to where more barbs will hit the dreadnought, and the poison instantly kills it. And
these barbs too are very brutal. Like they're like really big.
Yeah.
And that guy that got hit by him, like the way they described it, like going through his knee and stuff like that, it was awful.
Yeah. And one guy was hiding and sees all this, and McColl's like, "You better not say anything about this. I don't want the recognition." And he's like, "Okay." But yeah, McColl took out a dreadnought on foot with no heavy weapons. He is no one you want to mess with. So, next part...
You're a fething hero.
Yeah, that's basically what he said. He goes, "You're a fething hero. How was that? A fething dreadnought, McColl. You killed a dreadnought." McColl turned and faced Wade with a look that brooked no denial. "Well, tell the commissar that the area is cleared, understood? I don't want any stupid glory. Is that clear? But you killed it." "No, I didn't. I listened and waited and was silent. And when I made the opening, Remedies did the rest."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's we get to see the Chief Scout. Next is Corbic.
Oh boy.
So yeah, Corbic is...
Or as I like to call him, Jason Momoa.
Yeah, he can. I would cast Jason Momoa as Corbic.
We were talking about our
did.
cast for a live action.
Yeah.
40K.
So yeah, this one's a pretty short intro. It's just Gaunt hanging out with Corbic by the fire. Best bros. And then, so... This chapter 4 has 2 points of view. We have Gaunt and Milo are one point of view, and Corbic is, well, honestly 3, because there's also the executive officer, the Navarre, which is the frigate that the Ghosts are usually stationed on. So they are, yeah.
Oh yeah, this one's a cool chapter.
Yeah, they are assaulting the hive world of Caligula. Well, it's not a hive world; it has hive cities on it, but it's called Caligula. They're assaulting it, and they are dropping down onto it. They're going like 90 degrees, and Milo is like, "Man, I'm gonna vomit. Wait, I just don't have to think about it. Don't think about vomiting." And he looks across from him, and Ron's there, and this is Ron gives him a smile. And is like, "You got this," and he's just like, "Oh my god, that's terrifying." He's like, "Oh, but don't worry, Milo. You won't have to worry about vomiting because you're about to splatter into the ground." And they do, because the Chaos forces on this planet have erected a gigantic storm, a psychic storm using psychic evil powers, and it scares the ghosts that do make it to the ground. Korbic makes it to the ground, but all the other officers, Ron, Gaunt, did not. They veered off course and crashed ways away.
The storms also like mess with their heads. They make them like really paranoid and actually sick to their stomach.
That's basically the power of chaos on anyone who's not in chaos. Like you can't even look upon the unholy symbols because it makes you get a headache, and people will. And during this, just in the storm, they start bleeding from their nostrils. Some of them get violently ill. Yeah, it adds
seizures.
I love this part of 40K because you think it's all battle and war stuff, but then they throw SCP secret laboratory stuff and at you, and I just think that's cool.
Yeah.
So, the Gaunt and Co. crash, and this is like a desert planet, but there's these huge craters that support like different ecosystems, and they crash in a jungle like one. And they're like, okay, let's move. So they move to try and find someplace else. Just something is what they're trying to find. They have a couple scouts with them, so that's good. Korbic and the rest of the ghosts are in the fight of their lives in the city. Urban fighting. They're all getting sick, of course, because of the storm. And the biggest impact of the storm is it keeps their planes, their marauders and stuff, from being able to give them close air support, which is what they desperately need. And Korbic, Larkin, and a couple other ghosts go into an apartment complex or whatever, and they find a freaking demon. And it's got like tentacles and stuff, and it starts grabbing one of them. And Larkin goes ape shit and starts firing on full auto.
I mean, they can't even really properly face it because of how they're affected by it, just being near it. That's one defense it has, is it'll just make you trip out and stuff.
Yep.
But they do. Korbic decides to call it an orbital strike.
Yeah, so he calls the executive officer the Navarre, and earlier on he talks about Korbic. They kind of get along pretty well because both of them are officers, and the executive officer has to deal with the ghosts that are on board a lot more than anyone else on the ship. So they kind of Korbic invites him to drink and play cards and stuff, and they have these debates over what the real way of fighting a war is. And him being in the Navy was all about course correction, open the lance batteries, contact fleet command, very organized, of course. And Korbic's just like, no, man, you got it all wrong. It's all in the dirt and the fire and the blood when you rush a trench and stab a man. And so he contacts the officer here. And he's like, I know it's not really standard procedure, but this is the demon here. If you kill it, we can end this storm. And he goes to the captain of the ship, and the captain goes, is this guy reliable, or is he just crazy? And he's like, yes, and yes, sir. And he's like, very well, contact fleet command. I want to alert them to our next move. Ready the lance batteries. And the executive officer's like, man, this really is the only way to fight a war. So they call down the holy fire, and they destroy the demon. And the storm breaks, so more troops are able to land and reinforce the assault. The ghosts have pretty much single-handedly turned the tide again. Will they be recognized for it? No. But that's the life of an Imperial Guardsman.
It's the life of the ghosts.
Yeah. Back on with Gaunt and the rest, they find this secret facility out in the jungle, and it has auto turrets on it. They destroy the auto turrets and get in, and they find out that, this is what happened to the planet. So these agri corporations were trying to grow better crops that they could make more money off of, but they ended up starting growing like chaos corrupted plants, and that's what drove the population to revolt and join chaos. So that is what they discover, and Gaunt basically goes, burn it all, except for a shuttle that we conveniently found here that we can take back to the main lines, but everything else burn it. And they do. Gaunt comes back, and that is the assault on Caligula. Chapter 5.
I like this one. Larkin?
Yeah. Yep. This one's Larkin. So, Larkin, Helene Larkin, is
also known as Mad Larkin.
Yeah, he is the best sniper in the entire Tanith regiment.
But he's crazy.
He is very crazy. And he has this hunting scope that he keeps on his side and like attaches it to his rifle. He used it back on Tanith as what he used to hunt little rodents and stuff. And he says if he looks through it, he always sees the truth. And that is exactly what happens, as we see later on. But he's basically hiding in the top of this like cathedral, and there's a stone statue of a woman who's, I think it's supposed to be Saint Sabat. She's a religious saint for the emperor, or she's a representation of the emperor's will, whatever. The statue starts talking to him, and basically they're just talking, and she's asking him questions, and they're laughing. He's like, "Oh, I'm mad." And she laughs, and then she goes, "Why did you run, Larkin? Coward." And she turns into a commissar and pulls out a bolt pistol, and it's like, "I'm gonna execute your ass if you don't get back there and fight, guardsman." And he does get up, and he goes to the window, and the ghosts basically are here to kill the leader of this assault. He's a very charismatic leader of this chaos city, and he's going to be leading from the front. And
very large man, too.
Yeah. The chaos forces cannot lose if they're being led by this man, so they need to kill him. The ghosts are assaulting his position, trying to do this, but they're about to break. They're about to have to call off the assault, basically. Larkin is convinced by this apparition and this crazy thing he himself is seeing to actually get up, and he puts his rifle up, but he's like, "I need something to rest it on, or the shot could go wide." She tears off a piece of her dress and hands it to him, and she says, "Use this," and he's like, "Okay." He wraps around his barrel,
put against the wall,
and he makes the shot. He kills the leader. It completely, like, I guess there was definitely warp fuckery going on at this point, because it like completely, I think she like enhanced his gun because it like destroyed itself after he shot this guy, and he killed him in one shot.
Well, he said that his ammo is like amped up, he has to replace the barrel a lot.
Yeah, he uses the hot shot charge packs, so it's basically he's firing a full charge with every pull of the trigger, basically. Yeah. So these are very powerful sniper rifles, laser sniper rifles.
Yes.
But apparently there's a flash suppressor. I don't know how you flash suppress a laser, but that's some more warp fuckery going on. But he makes the kill, and he starts frothing at the mouth and has a seizure, which is more warp fuckery. And he faints, and then he wakes up, and Korbic is found. He's like, "I knew you didn't run. You were just trying to get into a good position." He's like, Yeah, it was. Yeah, totally. And then he thinks that everything was a dream, but then he looks back at his destroyed gun, and the wrapping that she gave him is still there. And he's just like, "What the fuck?" That's old Larkin's chapter.
At one point, she's like, "Do you think I'm a hallucination?" He's like, Well, yeah, probably. Like, who am I to judge?
I'm mad. And it's really cool. As he's talking to her, he's describing exactly how you'd be a good sniper. Like she's asking what he's doing. Like he's like, "I need to stop fidgeting, get my breath going." Mm-hmm. Yeah. And basically, he closes his eyes and let the gun settle naturally. And when he opens, he's like, "There's the shot." Yeah. Yeah. See. The very last thing Larkin saw before Korbic wrenched him away was his fallen lasgun, with the peerless, scorched white cloth still wrapped around the barrel. Yep. So next part here is Bragg's chapter.
Oh boy.
Bragg is massive. He's about as big as an Astartes, really. He's so big that he carries around a gigantic autocannon, two of them strapped together and jury-rigged with a trigger. But the thing is, he has horrible aim. That's why they call him Try Again Bragg. He'll shoot and it'll be like, "Okay, try again," and he always hits it on that second shot. But yeah, he is tasked with commanding a supply convoy across Caligula, the planet Korbic assaulted and won. They are having a problem reaching the other hive cities because of bandits out in the outlaw waste that fled the cities originally during chaos, and now they're just attacking Imperial convoys.
And the hard thing about it is that they're kind of spread out, so it's hard to get them all at one time.
So,
which is what they're going to try to do.
Yeah. So Bragg is sent to command it, and Bragg is kind of known as kind of a simple-minded person, so he's not really what you would expect to send on this very difficult escort mission. So all the ghosts who are assigned to this are pretty much like, yeah, we're being read off to die. And
the other companies, or whatever you call them, too.
They are pissed.
They're like, this guy's an idiot. Yeah. Why is he leading us?
Yeah, there's two local Caligula drivers in the same half-track or whatever that Bragg is in. And these are big truck, half-tracks, whatever, pulling trailers filled with supplies, and they have turrets on them. The other ghosts are on these tread bikes, which are like bikes but using tank treads, I guess, and they have turrets on them as well. They're riding around it in an escort position, and sure enough, they get ambushed, and they're trying to fight off all these people, and Bragg says, form a circle, we'll defend from there. And they're like, no, we got to keep moving. He's like, I have the orders here, or I will punch you. And they're like, okay. And so they do. And they're defending this circle with their very lives, and he orders these Caligula drivers to get on and start saying prayers on the Vox. So everyone's listening to Emperor-sanctioned prayers and whatnot, and it's causing them to fight
like
better.
Everyone hates his idea because it basically makes them sitting ducks.
Yeah.
And it's really not a good tactical plan.
Yeah.
As far as they know.
And the enemy also recognizes this, so they bum rush it. They're like, we're going to overwhelm it, and we're going to get all of these supplies. Mm-hmm. And Bragg is like, don't worry, we're doing what the Cardinal Commissar says. And he says that after
says that like
20 times. He's like, I just do what the Cardinal Commissar says. And he does. Like, he has them put on this, like, sunscreen because they're out in the desert and they're super pale. So he's like, we don't want to get burnt. Do as the Colonel Commissar says. So, yeah, they are fighting for their lives, and then Imperial Marauders come and carpet bomb the entire bandit gang and destroys them. And everyone's like, was that part of the plan? And Bragg's like, oh yes, I did what the Colonel Commissar said. So Gaunt knew that the Caligula drivers had spies within them that were alerting the bandits. And he had Bragg do all of this just to lure them out and destroy them with an airstrike. And one of the drivers here is that spy, and Bragg knows because Raglan, the comms officer, was monitoring all the Voxcast the entire time, so he knew when this guy alerted the bandits. So he tries to pull a gun on him, but I'm pretty sure Bragg punches him to death. Like, one punch is...
pretty brutal.
Yeah, he ended it in one punch, man.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, Gaunt's plan was to like get this guy who everyone thinks is a moron, and that inside guy's gonna be like, "Hey, there's some easy supplies
pickings,
here. Yeah. This moron's leading us. You can just get it pretty easily." So that was his whole plan. But the really great thing about the chapter is how smart
Bragg is. Yeah.
And that he's not all bronze. Yeah. He's got a lot of good brains too. Mm-hmm.
If only he could hit on the first shot.
That's the only thing he's lacking.
Yep.
I love Bragg. Bragg's one of my favorites.
Bragg is cool because he's always watching out for Milo.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, Milo's the youngest, the smallest, and you got Bragg who's just massive wall of muscle.
He watches out for everybody.
Yeah, he does.
I think.
He does, especially like later on when they are about to fight these Volpone dudes. Run along, little blue bloods.
Yeah.
So next part.
That was it.
That was it. Okay. Yeah. 7. This we have Ron's chapter. Mm-hmm. This one is called Permafrost, and this is a really cool planet they've designed. It's an ice planet, but there's like boiling sulfur seas underneath the ice, and sometimes there's algae and stuff that gets frozen, so the ice is red.
Yeah,
so it's really cool.
The further down you go, it's like red and black, and it looks kind of like a volcano almost. Yeah.
So it's cold. Ron is running away from orcs, and orcs, as you know, are the big, gigantic, muscular greenskins of 40K. Shreks. Big Shreks. They speak in a croaky. What is it? Cockney. They speak in Cockney accent. They're just like, "Oh, Space Marine! Oh, look at this little Umi. Let's get him your get. So, Ron is running away.
It's basically Shrek 4, honestly, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, but with blood.
Can you imagine that? If they just themed Shrek 4 into 40K.
Oh, get out this swamp! I'll get you with my shooter!
Do you remember that when they were like, with their ears? Yeah. That was wild. Anyway, cool ice planet.
Yeah.
Ron is he with like 2 other troopers?
No, he's alone.
I mean, like at first, doesn't he get separated from them?
No, at first he was with a platoon, and the platoon all died. So basically, it's just him. They all got killed by orcs. He's fleeing the orcs, and he goes and finds an ice cave where he can kind of get shelter. And because he's out of the wind, he feels like he's sweltering. So he starts taking all his clothes off, even though it's still below 0 inside this cave. He's like trying to rest, and he's trying to bandage himself. Like he's trying to thread and stitch a wound he's got, and he keeps missing it because his fingers are so numb.
It's in the commissar shows.
Yeah. So an orc comes in and is about to kill him, but Gaunt comes in and blows his head off. So Gaunt is in the same boat. His platoon also dead. So it's just Gaunt and Ron on this one. And if you didn't know, Ron kind of wants to kill Gaunt brutally. So Ron's tongue is wounded when he's fighting this orc that Gaunt kills, so he can't really speak all that well, and Gaunt's just basically ribbing him a bit. Gaunt basically gets these little cubes that are like heating, like starts a fire, chemical fire, and then he dumps some rations in and it starts bubbling, and it's beans. I like beans. Me and the boys at 3 a.m. looking for beanies. Looking for beans. Orcs and beans.
Gosh. Anyway, so Gaunt's just picking on Ron. And he's like, yeah, I know you want to kill me and everything.
Yeah. He does something really cool. He's like, he says there will be a time when I'm on your level. And if Gaunt basically says, if I'm ever on your level, Ron, I kind of want you to kill me. And he's like, okay, I'll be sure to. So then some more orcs show up. They shoot their way past them, and they have to run. And the orcs are on these machines, these driving machines, and they're looking for them. And they're hiding in this little hole in the ground, basically. And they're like, if we get up and try and run for it, they'll see us because it's flat ground all here. So they wait for one to get close and steal it. And they're driving. Gaunt's driving, but the problem is it's built for an orc and orc strength, so Gaunt can't drive it that well.
The cockpit's very large.
Yeah, and it's operated by levers. It uses like tracks, I think. So it drives like a tank. Gaunt knows how to drive tanks. But this one, it takes so much strength to run the levers. Mm-hmm. He can't even full throttle it.
Yeah, he can't turn it a lot too. So
and it'll like stop. Like the engine will cut off, and he has to recrank it, and that takes a lot of strength to do. Mm-hmm. They end up on a part of the ice that's thinner, that's right above the ocean, and they're getting chased. And Gaunt says, "Ron, 2 charges," and Ron's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And they throw these bombs behind them, and they blow up big holes in the ice, and the orcs can't stop, so they go plunging into these boiling seas, and Gaunt and Ron are both like really happy celebrating, but then they're like, oh shit, it starts cracking them, and they're like, oh no. And they jump off, and they're basically floating on these ice cubes, jumping from each one to one because they're melting. They have to get to solid ice. One of them starts tipping, and Gaunt is about to go in. Ron's already on the next one, and he's like, it could be really easy. No one would even ask any questions. He would be dead, and I'd be happy. And he throws his straight silver war knife, embeds into the ice, and Gaunt's able to stand on it while Ron comes in and pulls him up. And Ron then to Gaunt's like, why didn't you kill me? And Ron basically says, I'm loyal to the Emperor. You're still my commanding officer. I hate you. I'm going to kill you someday, but it won't be in dereliction of duty.
And Gaunt saved his life.
Yeah,
that
that
day,
too. So, and he basically says, "Oh, we're on the same level now. We're even."
Yeah.
But yeah. So Ron, as thanks, because Ron lost his own knife, Gaunt gives him his. So Ron now has Gaunt's knife.
Yep.
And before this chapter, he was shaving with it.
Yeah.
And Gaunt's basically looking at him and was like, "I'm gonna die by that blade one day." So yeah, Ron took the knife, he held it in his hands for a second, spun it with deft fingers, and then slid it into his empty belt sheath. "Do with it as you see fit," Gaunt said, turning his back on Ron. "I will, one of these days," replied Major Ellenrod.
As unlikable as he is, he's kind of a badass.
He is. That's kind of how every unlikable ghost is at this point.
Yeah, kind of.
Next chapter.
Oh, Dordan.
Dordan, Chief Medicae of the Tanith First-and-Only. Oldest. So old that he delivered Corbeck.
He did.
Yeah.
He did do that.
So they're on this world, let me see, Nacedon. And the Imperial Guard is in retreat. The enemy is about to commit onto an offensive, and they find a building, a little farmstead, that is filled with like 70 wounded Volpone troopers, and the Volpone regiments has just left them to die. Dordan, as a man who swore an oath to the Emperor to help all of his subjects, will not leave them. So Gaunt, even though that he does not need to lose Dordan, who's his best medic, lets him take 2 of his orderlies, and 3 of his orderlies, and then 5 more ghosts. So there's 10 staying behind with these men.
And the funny thing is, they find out later that he didn't have to like volunteer people.
Yeah, everyone
volunteered.
Pretty much. Yeah, McCall was talking to him. He's like, "Oh, you volunteered, McCall?" And he's like, "Oh, everyone did." Everyone, not Ron, I bet. Okay, maybe not everyone, but still,
pretty much everyone.
Gaunt had to choose people.
Yeah, there were so many people wanting to do it.
So McCall, Corbeck, a couple of the troopers, Catherine stayed. Yeah. So they start.
I really like this chapter because of how like
human
the camaraderie between all of them, and not just them, between the injured guys too. From whatever they're from,
the Volpone,
because later on, Corbeck says hi to one of them.
Yeah, oh, so that was cool.
In a later chapter, I really like that a lot.
I did too. So they are Dordan and his medics, field medics or whatever he has with him. They're stabilizing guardsmen, getting them as comfortable as they can. And later in the night, a storm happens. And
okay, a storm.
Yeah, maybe. And they were like, "Oh, maybe the enemy did this. I don't know. It doesn't matter."
It's a pretty bad one.
It was. And Corbeck is at the gate, and another guardsman is at the gate, and he calls out contact. So then they are in the middle of it. So the enemy advance has reached them. There are like 5. Yeah, there's 5 ghosts on the line.
Basically, just dig in and hope for the best. Really.
Broston, who's the big flame trooper, is there. We didn't get there. Wasn't a Broston chapter. I wish there was. He does some cool stuff in later books. He uses a flamethrower, and he always says, "Say hello to Mr. Yellow," and then burns people. Corbeck is holding the main gate, and then Broston pops up because they're about to overwhelm him and reach the gate. He's like, "Where's Broston?" And it says, "I was wondering where you got off to." So they're holding, and they realize that the Chaos Forces are going to start moving artillery in because they weren't able to storm the place. So they need to get all the wounded into the basement. So they need able-bodied ghosts who are on the line to go in and help move men. So the Volpone,
some of the more able-bodied injured Volpone, they're like, "Hey, we could help."
Yeah. So they go outside and they take the las guns off the ghosts on the line and let the ghosts come and move wounded because they're in a dug-in position. They don't really need to move around. They just need to be able to shoot. One of them is he's because of his wound, he's shooting to the left, and a ghost tells him to compensate. Hey, you're shooting to the left. He's like, no savage will tell a royal Volpone how to fight. And he says, shut the fuck up and do it. I don't care. And he's like, okay. He's like, oh, fuck you. But then he starts compensating for it. And he's like, okay, a lot better. So, yeah, they do this. They get moved down, and the bombardment begins. And before it happens, though, Corbeck and Dordan are like, oh, what do you want to do? Well, there was a shrine back here. You want to go pray? Yeah, let's go pray.
Yeah.
So they do, and they realize that this world was a trophy world. Yeah. The ghosts have lost their own world, but they have rights to any planet they win. They can settle. They can have a new Tanith. And they thought that it would be impossible, but here's evidence that it very much is. Even so, though, if they do win it, generations down the line, the enemy may take it again. That's what it's like in the 41st millennium. So, yeah, bombardment begins.
That really hits close to home, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. This is a kind of a shitty universe to live in. It's like Star Wars fans are like, man, I really wish I was in Star Wars. Star Trek fans, I wish I was on the Enterprise. 40K fans are like, nah, I'm good.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, the bombardment ends, and Gaunt is on the first half track up to the facility, and he gets there and sees all the dead Chaos troopers, and there's a ghost on guard duty there. He's like, oh, hello, Colonel Commissar, how you doing? And top of the morning to you.
How you doing?
And, yeah, the Volpone who they saved are very thankful. Yeah. And this was just a very, you don't see, this is why after the first book, really, Gaunt's ghost shifts away from the pure grimdark fantasy of 40K, and in my opinion goes to pure heroic fantasy. It's still 40K, it's still a very dark universe, but the ghosts are able to be heroic and good people despite all of that. Mm-hmm. This is very wholesome. This is the most wholesome probably chapter in any Black Library book, I would say.
People still die though.
They do.
Lots of them.
Yeah, the thing is, Abnett is not scared at killing off characters, but he always makes sure that the ghosts are better off at the end of a book than they were at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, next chapter, it's Catherine.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, our favorite trooper. Just regular guy. So, Catherine is... It begins here. Gaunt comes up to him and he's practicing the bayonet, and Gaunt tells him,
twist.
Yeah. He keeps repeating, swing, address, stab, slide, return. Swing, address, stab, slide, return. So the Catherine is coming down on a transport to assault a beach on Sapiencia. It's a very large Chaos refinery. They can't bombard it because they need the fuel, but they need to take it by foot, and that's very hard because it's very fortified. So the plan is the dropships are going to land the Ghost and the same Basilisk tanks that almost killed them in friendly fire, and they're going to blow it open so that the Volpone can go in, because, hey, it worked last time. Unfortunately...
But they fail.
Yeah.
It's very foggy, and they can't see where the beach is, and they land them short of the beach. Lots of people drown.
The wash from the jets of the dropships caused all this steam to pop up, so they can't see. So a lot of the ghosts drown.
Lots of tanks are just
bogged
in the water.
Down. Yep.
And then later waves make it, but Tanith can't swim for the most part.
Most of them were not around oceans or in forests.
Yeah.
So not good swimmers. But a transport crashes into the wall and blows it open for them. But as they try to march in, they just get met with a wall of lead, basically. They can't breach in. They need armor to do it. So orders are to the Tanith and the Kestok, the Basilisk, to pull back, and the Volpone are going to go in and take all the glory. And the Tanith are like, "Feth that." Catherine's like, "Hey, look, there's a tunnel up there." And they're like, "Good eyes, lad." So they, Catherine and a couple other troopers are going to climb up into this tunnel and see what they can do. One of them,
they all make it except for the sergeant.
Yeah, so Catherine, because it was his idea, decides to lead. Domer, who's with them, he, in the first book, lost his eyes, and he has these cybernetic eyes now, but they got seawater in him, so they're failing. So he's about to get blind, and he does get blind while they're doing this. They end up in the middle of the refinery, and they get in a firefight. Catherine throws a grenade. And
that one guy with the arm, he has to
that's
turn
Varl.
it off.
Yeah, Varl has to turn off his arm. He's a sergeant. He doesn't go with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he's an actual sergeant, one of the favored sergeants in the regiment.
He has a cybernetic shoulder, so like he still has a real arm, but like he starts getting seawater in it,
and it starts shorting out and electrocute him. So they take the battery out, but the battery is what was keeping the arm alive. So if he doesn't get it fixed, his arm's gonna die.
He loses his arm.
So Catherine's commando team gets into the middle of the refinery. They get in a firefight. Catherine throws a grenade. It causes a huge chain reaction because who would have thought that would happen in the middle of an oil refinery? And basically, he convinces the entire Chaos forces that there's a lot more enemies than there really is, and these Chaos troops are all dedicated to death. That's their main thing. They want to die. They think it's the most holy way of worshiping their Chaos god. So because they think that they're in an unwinnable situation, they decide to off themselves. And Catherine sees a bunch of them lined up, filling up into a
they're using
courtyard.
bulldozers to like get them out of the way.
So there's like a courtyard full of them, and then a line in front just like freaking mows them down. But then that line steps forward and fills the courtyard again, and the line behind them blows them away. And it's just like that. It's just full on death. They're killing themselves. And
so Catherine did that.
Yeah, Catherine did that. So after all this, Gaunt comes and says, "I want you with me," and he brings them forward. And they have the Chaos leader here, and he is baying for death. He wants them to kill him, and Gaunt says, "I think it should be you, Catherine, to have the honors." Hands him his bolt pistol, and Catherine realizes, no, we can't do this. This is what he wants. We should make him rot for all his days. Never let him die. And Gaunt says, what does Gaunt say? He has a cool line. Yeah, Gaunt says, I may have to promote you someday. And, they lead him away to prison, imprison him. And, that's Catherine's chapter. Next chapter. Bryn Milo. So, we start off there on Monthax, and Bryn is like, I want to be with the troopers. I'm 18 now, as of 3 days ago. And Gaunt's like,
I'm an adult, Dad.
Yeah, basically. And Gaunt's like, I really can't argue against that. You've been trained. Okay, join Ron's 3rd platoon. I know they are the ones who are probably going to break, and they also hate me, and by extension you, but I trust you on this, Brynny boy. I need you to watch them. And Bryn's like, okay, Dad. And Gaunt also tells him to stop guessing everything up 100% right. And he says, I need you to stop anticipating completely. Completely? He says, that's right. Well, I don't mean stop doing your job. Just stop doing things that people could take the wrong way. What do you say? I'd like that. Thank you. A deal. Gaunt fires from a rare spout. Now go and find me Corbic and McCall. I need to run through some details with them. Milo paused and Gaunt turned, looking down off the stoop to see the colonel and the scout sergeant standing side by side, looking up at him expectantly. Milo suggested that we should stop by when we had a chance. Is now a good time? Gaunt turned back to find Milo, but the boy, probably on the basis of another wise anticipation, had made himself scarce. So, Chapter 10, Witch Hunt. We begin with Varl, who is spinning a tale amongst several guard regiments that are all sharing a transport. He has a game to play. They have this little sensor device thing. It's like a cup with holes cut into it, and they're taking worms that live in the meal stores of the ship, and they're putting it in the sensor and guessing which hole it'll come out of. And Varl spins this tale. It's completely rigged for the ghost favor, and he lets them guess first, and then he puts it in and sets it down, and basically he knows whichever one will win. They don't want Varl to play because they're pretty sure that it's rigged and he's the one doing it, so they make this big show about it. Catherine shows up acting like he's drunk, and Varl's like, no, Catherine, you're not good for it. He's like, oh, fifth off, I'm good for it. So he's putting his money in the pot. So and then they're like, Varl, we don't want you playing. And he's like, okay, the boy will play for me. And Bryn's like, but I can't do it, Varl. I'm too young. And he's like, oh, nonsense, boy. And they're like, and it describes like no one wants Milo there, and no one doesn't want him there as much as himself. Like, he's scared the entire time, shaking.
It's a con.
Yeah, and they play the game, and Catherine loses money and gets pissed off and leaves. And they think that Varl has completely lost control of the situation, so it's actually fair.
And this is the major of the Volpone?
Yeah, Major Gilbeard. Right. They're elite. The Volpone elite.
Yeah. So Volpone again.
Yeah, they're getting in on this. And Bryn starts winning. And he wins the entire pot, and they decide to cut it there. And they head off, and they're all laughing in this causeway. But then Gilbert and some other Volpone are about to beat their ass, because the Volpone are big corn-fed motherfuckers. But then Bragg, who is the biggest corn-fed motherfucker around, pops in, and I've got to read this. This is just one of the funny things. Yeah, Bragg pops up. Is there a problem? Asked the sixth member of the Tanith Scam team. The Tanith Scam team. Bragg pulled his vast bulk into the light behind his comrade, squinting in a relaxed way down at the 5 Bluebloods. He seemed to fill the corridor. The ghost parted to let Bragg lumber through. He adopted the slow gait Varl had trained him in to emphasize his power. Go away, little Bluebloods. Don't make me hurt you, he said, repeating the cue Varl had also given him. It came out stilted and false, but the Bluebloods were too amazed at his size to notice. They turned. With a final scowl, Gilbeer followed them. The ghost began to laugh so hard they wept. Next, we see Gaunt. And he is basically with all the officers in this huge command center. And he's talking to another commissar, and the commissar's like, don't look now, but there's some people looking at you. Let me guess. Volpone, big guy? Yes. Yeah, they have it out for me. They cost me 200 or 300 of my men. Okay, so I have it out for them too. Enter Inquisitor Lilith. So there's troopers that are searching Gaunt's quarters while he's asleep. He comes up and beats the shit out of him. And then an Inquisitor pops in and says, if I knew you were sleeping, I wouldn't have caused them to come in here and go through your stuff. Oh, but if I wasn't here, you would? Well, yes, I'm an Inquisitor. And he's like, fair play. And she basically goes, okay, because of this little game, people think Bryn Milo is a psyker, and I need to see if that's true. So I need to question him. And she basically she accuses Gaunt, oh, you just wanted a young strapping lad to be your cabin mate. And Gaunt smacks her as soon as she tries to say that he's a pedo. He's like, fuck you. I will not even let that leave your mouth. And she's like, ooh, damn.
She's like a very masculine woman. Like,
she's very tall. Yeah.
Yeah, she's just like very like overbearing and like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Very forward.
Very forward, yeah. She definitely wants to bang Gaunt.
Definitely.
Yeah. So she ends up, Gaunt goes and gets Milo and is like, there's this lady. She's a scary lady. Answer honestly, Pretty Boy. She's going to ask you some questions.
She's a scary lady.
Just answer honestly. And he's like, okay. So she starts, they put him on a throne, and she's on a little wood stool. It's supposed to kind of cause psyker energy to show up, I believe. But, yeah, she's asked him these questions just about his life, and Gaunt's there watching. And she asks, do you know why you're here? And he says, I can guess. Gaunt's like, wrong answer, Bryn. Wrong answer. And he's like...
He says, I'm different.
Yeah, I'm considered by many to be a misfit. Some of the tenants don't like to have me around. I'm not like them. Feth Milo, I said answer honestly, but there's honest and there's this. And yeah, so he's like, I'm different. It makes them uneasy. How are you different? She asked, almost eager. Here it comes, thought Gaunt. I'm not a soldier. You're... what? And he goes on this big dacha how he's not a soldier, he's young.
Civilian.
He basically reminds them of all they've lost, and it makes them uneasy. And she gets silent, and Gaunt can't even stop himself from smiling. Because it's a perfect answer. And she gets up and crosses over to him and whispers, have you briefed the boy? Coach him in good answers for just such an event? No, and if I had, don't you suppose such an admission might make it look as if I knew Milo had something to hide? She hissed a curse and thought for a moment. So basically, yeah, she's like, she goes to Milo then about the game, tries to catch him again. And he basically describes the scam. So the little mealworms like sugar, and they have some in their pocket. So they'll put some on their finger, and they're the last ones to touch the sensor. So they'll put, after the person guesses, they'll put the sugar on one of the holes discreetly and put the worm in. So it always goes to the one who touches the sugar.
Yep.
And she goes, fair enough. And she says, Commissar, he might not be a witch, but if I were you, I'd think twice about having a devious and underhanded little cheat like him anywhere near me. I'll take that under advisement, Inquisitor Lilith. Yeah, and he's like, well done, I'm sorry you had to go through that. You thought she'd get me, didn't you?
Yeah. Now for the main story.
Yes. Some dark and secret purpose. Monthax, the offensive is here. The ghosts have like 9 kilometers they have to cover. There's thousands and thousands of chaos troops out there, and the intelligence has no idea what their plan is. They're moving in a way that signifies that they're moving like laterally, advancing along the Imperial lines, and basically that's tactically suicide. The ghosts need to hold this big position. They split up in their platoons. Milo is with Ron, and they make contact. They start getting into firefights, except for Ron's platoon. They keep moving forward, and Ron's like, I hear contact to the left, and Milo's like, to the right as well. And Fager's like about to turn on him and tell him to shut the fuck up, and Ron's like, no, he's right. Go to your side. And they keep moving forward, and then we see a new point of view from a man who calls himself an Old One. This is an Eldar. Eldar are like elves in 40k. They're one of the most oldest races. They are the pretty much oldest race still around. And they have been long doomed by chaos to where they breed very slowly. So they have these craft worlds that are connected to these portals called webways. Monthax has a webway portal.
What does that mean?
What?
What do you mean breed slowly?
Well, they kind of were too horny, and they birthed Slanesh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened. I know they say you. This is from TTS. The Emperor's like, I know they say you lose it if you don't use it, but you also lose it if you use it extensively. These were some horny ass elves, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, they have these craft worlds they live on now, and they're hidden away behind these portals called webways. Monthax has a webway portal. These Eldar here are supposed to guard it, and they know they can't, so they need to close it. And this Eldar Lord, Eon Ko, decides that he is going to make a storm and use the humans to... It's going to like target the human psyche and make them think that they're fighting for what they want to fight for most.
Yeah,
but unfortunately...
But he kind of goes over the top and
like
pulls out all the stops and makes a really strong storm that knocks him out, so he can't control the storm.
Yeah, and
while
he wakes up. He wakes up. The storm has completely obliterated and flooded the jungle and stalled the entire Imperium assault. And all he has managed to catch and what he wanted to do was Ron's platoon. So now the third platoon here think they're on Tanith. They think that they think the fortress that has the webway portal is the Elector's palace on Tanith Magna.
Yep.
And they're like, we're gonna hold this for Tanith for our home. And Milo is like, wait a minute. Something's not right. Yeah. And they keep on fighting. Back with Gaunt and Corbeck and the rest, they run into Inquisitor Lilith. She's here, and Major Gilbeer is also here. He and his elite Volpone are her bodyguard. And they decide to advance with 60 of them, half Volpone, half Tanith, and find this artifact that she thinks is here, which is what the Chaos are after. And so,
which McCall finds again.
Yeah, McCall is able to find it. And he went away from his own platoon alone and was in a one-man army battle between him and hundreds of thousands of Chaos troops. And he freaking survives. He captures a last pistol from an enemy and starts dual-wielding with his own. It was some of the most badass action ever put on paper.
What was the one part? Didn't he set a trap for a couple of them or something?
I think so. Like he set a tube charge. Yeah. He set a tube charge and blew them all to Kingdom Come. But yeah, Corbeck, Gaunt.
He got out alive.
Yeah, he did. He runs into Gaunt and the rest, and Gaunt realizes before this that Lilith is using her psychic powers to manipulate him and the other guys, because she calls Korbeck handsome to kind of make him jealous. And he's like, wait a minute, you're manipulating me, aren't you? She's like, I'm just trying to do what's best here, Gaunt. I apologize, won't happen again, we'll just do it together. And she's like, okay.
Also at this time, Korbeck and Gilbert have a
fist fight, yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, Gilbert says something stupid, and Lilith goes, Gilbert, are you still the head of my bodyguard? Yes, my lady. Have you gotten any other responsibilities since then? No, my lady. Then will you fuck off? And he's like, yes, my lady. I'll go check the picket. So he goes outside, and he sees two ghosts who are supposed to be watching the line, but they're trying to light up cigarettes that are soaking wet.
He tells them all.
So he starts kicking them. Beating them, basically. And that's why Korbeck comes in and starts fighting him back. And it goes off how Gilbert is a champion boxer. Korbeck is a champion wrestler. And Riley's probably, that's why Riley likes Korbeck so much, because he was also a wrestler. And
I did like that a lot, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I knew you would. So they're fighting in the mud, and then
Korbeck kicks his ass.
Yeah, they're fighting, and then a demon dog comes out of the jungle out of nowhere, and
but they kill it.
Yeah, it chases Korbeck and Gilbert out, and Gilbert, because he's rich, has this really good carapace armor. Not like the flak armor the ghosts have, so he's like getting clawed, but his armor's protecting him. And Korbeck gets on top of it and starts stabbing it, and it roars, and he goes, Gilbert, no, no, and he throws a grenade into its mouth, and they kill it, and Korbeck is now just like, truce, and they decide on a truce after that. Who knew you could be such friends with someone after killing a giant demon animal? So yeah, they start, everyone else, more of these monsters start coming out of the jungle, and they're just blasting away at them. And they decide to move forward. McCall finds the ruin that he was looking for, and they decide
it's surrounded by
hundreds of thousands of Chaos troops. And they're like, Gaunt gives a rousing speech. They head out. And then Lilith realizes what's happening and realizes that all the men think they're actually fighting for Tanith, and the Volpone think they're fighting for a planet called Ignis Major, which is a planet that they lost at. They fought really hard for it, but they still ended up losing, which has always been a shame on their record.
So Gaunt gives a really cool speech about fighting for those things.
He says, he's like, for lost Tanith, for mighty Volpone, for the Emperor, for Tanith, for Ignis Major. And the Volpone and the Ghost are just in a frenzy. The Volpone will go into the back ranks of the Chaos troops and captures all their artillery and starts blasting it on them. The Ghosts are moving on the flanks. The Volpone are covering them until they get too long a distance. They mine the guns and go with them. And they are just carving through this ungodly amount of Chaos troops. They should be dead. They aren't, because the Eldar, their cosmic fuckery here, is making them fight like gods, basically. And it's making the Chaos troops also be shit. Yeah. Understandable. Have a nice day. Back with Ron's platoon, they still think they're on Tanith, and they come in and find 3 Eldar troops. And they're like, oh, it's more Tanith. Yeah, it's more Tanith. We're here. And he's like, Colonel, Major Ron, reporting. 3rd platoon, ready to fight. He's like, well met, human. and Milo was like, wait a minute. These guys have white hair. Tanith have black hair.
And that Ron is like, for Tanith. He's like, yes.
Yes.
For Tanith.
Yes, for Tanith. All these Eldar are like, what the fuck are these humans here doing? Why are they crazy? Because they don't know their big top guys' plan, so they just think these guys are crazy.
He's just like, this is Major Ron. They are fighting with us now.
Yeah, he says, men of Dolth, and Mila's like, Dolth? Where was that? Arkin arrived to fight with us, Major Ron and other humans. Treat them well, they are resolute and with us to the end. And, yeah, after that, Milo is about to take his place when he saw Larkin was cowering behind them all, crouched in the corner of the battlement away from the fight, clutching his sniper rifle and taking trouble. Larkin, what is it? Took a look through my scope, They're not human. What? Milo felt his guts clench, but he wasn't going to give in. I know what I saw through my scope. My scope, it never lies. This big bastard Munro and the rest, they're not Tanith. He looks at it, he sees this, it describes him as blue armor and his Eldar feature. Oh, my Emperor. They're Eldar. The Ghost and the Volpone break through, and they meet Lord Eon Cole. Before that, this is funny. Muon Null, who's like the leader of the Eldar soldiers, Gaunt salutes and held out his hand. Ibram Gaunt. Nothing more needed to be said, Gaunt thought. Muon Null looked at the proffered hand, then slung his weapon over his shoulder and clasped it. He spoke a bewildering slither of otherworldly language. You've just been formally worshipped as a fellow warrior, Lilith said. I am Lilith, of the Imperial Inquisition. Muon Null, a head taller than even Gilbert, paused and nodded slowly. Gaunt looked around sharply at the Inquisitor. We're not getting anywhere fast. Does anyone here speak Eldar? I do, Lilith said, but Muon Null spoke simultaneously. There is no need. I understand. You must follow me now. The Farseer Lord awaits. So they come in, Lord Young Cole, and he tells them about what this is. It's a portal, and it needs to be closed. And apparently Lilith, he can't close it because he's about to die, and he has no more psychic power. Lilith, she's a psychic.
She can do that.
She's a very good one. She can do it. And
she closes it.
She has had a fascination with Eldar, so this is what she was born to do, basically. She goes with the Eldar, closes the way behind him, and then the basically Chaos forces after the storm, the Imperial forces just decide to bombard them. Don't know why they didn't do that at the beginning. Probably just warp fuckery, saying no, you need to be here. So and then it lists the last page of the book is actually no, the last page of the book is Gaunt talking to Milo. But before that, it goes on about how in the records, none of the Imperial tacticians were going over these records have any idea how this could happen. They literally killed 2,400 Chaos troops out of thousands. It was 60 of them versus 100,000, and they only lost one man.
They didn't lose any men.
No, Lager. He died.
Oh.
He was the one at the point who always thought he was invincible.
No, I don't think he died either.
Yeah, he did.
I don't think so. I think they got out of there with no deaths. I'm pretty sure I remember that.
He died. I know it.
Anyway, it was like tactically impossible, so they just scrubbed it from the record completely because they couldn't justify it.
And
couldn't make any sense out of it. And then
the only man Gaunt had lost in the final assault had been Lyra, taken by a remarkably lucky glancing shot off the roof of the Eldar Temple.
Oh, boo!
Yeah, I told you. Yeah.
And then at the end, Milo's saying like, "Well, that was a really good thing, like, because like we never got to fight for Tanith, but now
they actually saved a world. Wasn't a human world, but they still saved one." And it feels good. And
like they, in a way, fought for Tanith because they thought they were. So
and it goes on how Catherine says goodbye to his wife. McCall says goodbye to Eleni, which was his wife that they saw. They were having visions the entire time. Like even before most of this happened, Milo's out in the jungle and he's like, "You guys smell that?" Catherine's like, "What is it?" Now wood. Oh shit, you're right.
And McCall, that's how he got back to that ruin, was because it was literally like his way home.
Yeah. Way
so
to his home
like,
with his wife and sons. Yeah.
It was weird. So, but that's the book. We hope you guys enjoyed. Let us know what you thought. We're going to be doing Necropolis probably fairly soon. I'm really excited for it, and I want to read it pretty soon. So we'll try to do that in the near future. Anything else coming up?
If Tanner ever stops going to the beach for us to go see Suicide Squad.
Yeah, we do need to do that. Also, we might be doing some Jojos fairly soon.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I just read part 3, so I need to probably do that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time.
Peace out. Like and subscribe.